First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Phil Picara. I'm the chairman of the American National Standards Institute Board of Directors. And it's my pleasure to welcome all of you, members and friends, and from the broader standardization community to the 2023 Annual Business Meeting Luncheon. This afternoon, Joe Battia and I will share a few highlights from the past year, along with our perspectives on issues and opportunities that we see on the horizon. And I would say that these comments are certainly framed by the context of the conversation that we had this morning that Andy Updegrove so capably moderated. What I would also say is, as diverse as all the organizations are that are in this room, there are probably a lot more commonalities than not. For example, most of the organizations in this room are going to be dealing with speed. Standards organizations are under pressure to deliver solutions faster than ever while maintaining the integrity of the standards development process. Politicization. And I promised Joe Tretler I was going to try to keep my words to less than 3 syllables, but politicization is one of those more difficult ones. Some policymakers, domestically, regionally, and internationally, are unduly influencing standards development processes in their pursuit of policy goals. The workforce, and again, you heard this this morning. As you heard this morning, industry, government, academia, and standards developing organizations are all grappling with how to ensure that we build and train a technically expert, standard knowledgeable workforce for the unique global environments that we all operate in. And of course, volume. The number of standards venues has grown dramatically as consensus bodies, treaty organizations, consortia, and standards development organizations jockey to take on critical and emerging technologies. And we've heard the words critical and emerging technologies several times, and we'll continue to hear it. In May, the White House released the U.S. government National Standards Strategy for Critical and Emerging Technology. The strategy outlines goals to enhance U.S. competitiveness, protect the integrity of our rule-based and private sector-led standards ecosystem, and strengthen U.S. leadership and competitiveness within that ecosystem. It clearly emphasizes U.S. government support for our private sector-led system, and it pledges to complement our efforts with strategic government and economic policies, public engagements, technology investments, and increased U.S. engagement in international standard setting. Equally important, this document complements the U.S. standard strategy, which ANSI updated and published in January of 2021, with broad input from the diverse standardization community. But some observers have suggested that perhaps the government's new strategy calls into question the effectiveness of the private sector-led system. But on the other hand, others believe that the themes and recommendations woven throughout the document can support, enhance, and improve the effectiveness of our system while placing emphasis on the unique needs of the emerging CET sector that are essential for U.S. competitiveness and national security. So the question is, what do all of you think? We want to hear from you. On behalf of the private sector-led standardization community, ANSI is coordinating a formal response to a request for information issued by NIST, seeking input on the implementation of that strategy. You can contribute to ANSI's response by sending input to Mary Saunders, ANSI Vice President of Government Relations and Public Policy. Mary is here today and can answer your questions about the deadline for comments. And she's sitting right there waiting for your comments as we speak. A joint task force of ANSI's national and international policy advisory groups will assist staff with the development of the formal response. We are also coordinating with NIST to promote listening sessions on the strategy. In fact, ANSI will host one next month on November 16th, which will have opportunities for both in-person and virtual participation. NIST held its first listening session on September 12th in Detroit and is planning additional sessions at various venues across the country over the next few months. And we'll be sure to keep you informed on how you can participate. You are, in fact, the community that ANSI represents, and we will always be steadfast champions for the effectiveness and strengths of our market-driven and private sector-led system. Your voices will certainly make the message even stronger. To that end, and on behalf of the ANSI board, I want to thank all of you who added your voices to the work of our board focus groups on the evolving standards landscape. I certainly recognize many of you from last year's sessions, where we discussed the rapid technological, political, logistical, and social changes that are posing new challenges and new opportunities for U.S. stakeholders engaging and leading standardization activities. After reviewing all of the input that we received, the focus groups recommended that ANSI launch an educational and awareness program about the increasing politicization of standards and related standards processes. The campaign will inform stakeholders about ways to partner with ANSI and our broader community to address those concerns. Today's conference is actually a direct outcome from the focus group's recommendations. And we're glad that you're here, and we look forward to your input during the afternoon's discussion. As I prepared for today's remarks, I reflected on my 3 years as chair of the ANSI board. First of all, I'm very thankful that my board colleagues did not impeach me, as they had suggested they were going to do when I first started. But there have been a number of changes that have been extremely rapid, and they've come about and demonstrated to me how complex and diverse our community has become. New industries and communities represented, new technologies, new modes of operation. But change also opens the door to opportunity. It's been an honor for me to contribute to the strategic vision for our community, to assist in navigating change, and to help strengthen our system for a better tomorrow. Before I turn the microphone over to Joe so that he can highlight how the Institute is embracing change with strategic vision and concrete action, I want to take a moment to extend my personal thanks to the ANSI staff for their work, and to my fellow board officers and members for all their guidance and support, and to all the members and volunteers who contribute expertise, energy, and resources to build, implement, maintain, and constantly improve the initiatives that you're going to be hearing about today. On that note, it is my pleasure to introduce ANSI's President and CEO, Joe Batia. Joe, the microphone is yours. Joe decided he did not want to use my notes.
I need somebody to carry this. It's kind of heavy. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I wish this light was not right at my face, but it's here. So, good afternoon again, everybody, and welcome everybody again. Before I begin my remarks, I do want to say something to Phil. I want to thank him for his partnership and leadership of the ANSI Board of Directors. This is his now last World Standards Week as the chair, and thus my opportunity to share the podium with him for the annual business meeting, perhaps for his last time. So I suspect, Phil, that in your honor, perhaps all the questions that may come up after we finish talking can probably be given directly to you. That could be my honor to you as you depart.
The guidelines have always been, he gets the hard ones and I get the softballs.
Well, I was expecting applause, but it didn't happen. The theme, okay, let's get serious. The theme of this year's annual report innovation, and impact, showcases how the Institute is embracing the rapid pace of change in our community with strategic vision and concrete action. More than a century of history demonstrates that we both, ANSI and the private sector-led standard system that we get involved with, that we oversee, are really robust, and we grow and thrive in transformative times also. The Board Focus Group offers to address and does evolving standards landscape as well. That's the title. It's an example of how ANSI responds to emerging issues, engaging stakeholders to an open dialogue about the challenges and opportunities, presenting recommended actions that will keep our community well-positioned going forward. As Phil just mentioned, the education and awareness campaign we develop will ensure that stakeholders throughout our system know how to watch for signs about politicization and standards processes, and the steps that can be taken when concerns arise within their industry, and we know that's happening quite often. It's important that policymakers and those working in the public sector understand the intricacies of the standards ecosystem. During my remarks in May at the White House Summit, launching of the U.S. Government National Standards Strategy for Critical and Emerging Technology, I noted that the government strategy recognizes and aligns with ANSI's own U.S. standards strategy. Both documents actually emphasize the importance of the increased U.S. engagement in international standards for critical and emerging technologies and stress U.S. government support for our private sector-led system. These points, reiterated during the information sharing event that ANSI hosted on the Hill this year, we spoke at that time with 40 staff members from the House and Senate. Mary was engaged, and so were other people. This discussion was focused on congressional involvement in standards for critical and emerging technologies, the current AI standards landscape, which we've talked about a lot, the importance of avoiding prescriptive legislative language in technology policy and standards. Now, early next month, ANSI and partners from the U.S. Celebration of World Standards Day Committee, we will host another Hill event focused on U.S. leadership in advancing manufacturing. And as Phil mentioned, later in November, we will hold a listening session with NIST, and I will join their leader, Lacasia, to participate and to bring our stakeholders from U.S. standardization system together to further the conversation about the U.S. government's national standards strategy. ANSI takes all this very seriously as our role to represent our broad and diverse community to assure that the private sector-led system continues to be well-served here in the U.S., and that we are on effective level representing our national interests in the global economy as well as what we do here in the U.S. This also includes maintaining a leadership role on standards for emerging technologies. I'll start by sharing a few initiatives that we have recently undertaken here right at home. In June, a cross-sector ANSI panel published a roadmap to support standards and codes for electric vehicles at scale. A month later, the America Makes an ANSI Additive Manufacturing Standardization Collaborative published the third version of its roadmap to accelerate the development of standards needed by industrial market sectors to use AM technologies. And this week, we begin tackling the topic of generative AI. You all were here. You saw what we talked about. Yesterday's forum explored its responsible and ethical activities, and tomorrow's conversation with ANSI's Legal Issues Forum will explore the copyright implications of using generative AI in standards and standards in AI, back and forth. That should be interesting. Like many of the topics we explore, emerging AI technologies have the potential to transform industries and impact the day-to-day lives of consumers. One of the challenges that our community often struggles with is finding ways to articulate the impact of our work to consumers and others who may not understand the value of standards. Now, we discussed that quite a bit just a few hours ago. ANSI and UL Standards and Engagement teamed up with members of our community and the Consumer Product Safety Commission to address this challenge. In August, we published a white paper that helps articulate tangible ROI for the work our community is undertaking to keep consumers and the public safe by mitigating risks such as illness and injury. I'm sure we all want to avoid those. In the examples we just discussed, electric vehicles, additive manufacturing, generative AI, and human health and safety, the scope of work naturally extends across disciplines and borders. So let's talk a little bit about international activities. Our work with international partners is more important now than ever before, and our business in international partnership activities is very important for our sustained growth and success in the future. Through ANSI's U.S. National Committee, the U.S. participates in nearly 90% of IEC's total technical program. There you go. You're winning on that one. Last November, the USNC hosted this 86th ANS General Meeting in San Francisco with nearly 2,000 participants from over 50 countries. This was a very significant way for the U.S. to showcase our international leadership and cooperation with the global partners in the electrotechnical community worldwide. Switching to ISO, which is, of course, a much more diverse entity, the U.S. participates in nearly 75% of the technical work. New U.S. tags are forming every year. Some recent additions include natural gas fueling stations and sustainable processes for wood and wood-based products. They don't sound too exciting, but we do that every year. We add new things. As international and regional standardization activities continue to expand in scope, venues, and number of participants, the U.S. must double down on our engagement and leadership. This past year, ANSI held bilateral meetings with our counterparts in Germany, Korea, with representatives from several European standards organizations, including a special meeting with 3 of the organizations that we all work with very closely, to identify opportunities for cooperation in key technology areas. ANSI's relationships are a cornerstone of our national ability to engage with international partners, be friends with them, work with them, foster bilateral relationships, and affect the changes that may be needed in the regional and international standards before bodies where we jointly participate. We want to make sure that we are sensitively handling that. We also committed to supporting developing countries in their implementation of international best practices and thus bolstering their capacity to participate in the global standards development activities. Standards Alliance 2, our partnership with the U.S. Agency for International Development, supports the capacity of developing countries in Latin America, the Middle East, North America, Sub-Saharan Africa, Indo-Pacific, and others. This year, we are partnered with the American Water Works Association. I can't read it because it's under the black mark, so I have to read carefully. Anyway, American Water Works Association to host virtual workshops and training supporting African water utilities in Zambia, Lesotho, and Malawi. We work with the ASTM International and American Petroleum Institute to facilitate training on standards for petroleum quality, safety, and management systems in Senegal. And we conducted a 2-week series of trainings in South Africa and Kenya on reducing barriers to the importation of U.S. medical devices that aid in fighting COVID-19, or I guess now similar, painful sufferings. Next, let's talk about education and awareness activities. ANSI's education and awareness activities are going on the home front as well. We have launched several new online resources to support early career standards professionals in tackling the steep learning curve in standards and conformity assessment and help seasoned industry professionals understand some of the finer details. I'm also proud to see an increasing level of mentorship in our community. The USNC mentoring program, for example, pairs a newer professional with more experienced members for guidance in becoming a successful participant, an expert, or a leader in international electrotechnical standardization. That prepares them for the long-run wins. There's also a lot of interest from the academic world in bringing standards experts into the classroom. The Committee on Education is matching faculty at post-secondary schools with standards experts who can speak to their classes about the impact of standards and their relevance to field they are in study. I encourage all of you to consider becoming a mentor or a speaker and to share information about these opportunities with yours and others in the organization. As you heard throughout our morning discussion, our actions today shape the standards and leaders of tomorrow. Speaking of the outreach, ANSI continues to ramp up our outreach to consumers by doing two things. Number one, hosting a series of webinars with the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission that educate consumers on the standards development and how they can make a difference. And number two, building and promoting a growing collection of Q&As with leading consumer advocates that offer concrete suggestions on how consumers can get involved and be successful. For those consumers who are interested but find financial aspects of participation a challenge, the Consumer Participation Fund reimburses eligible travel and participation fees of consumer reps in the development of American national standards, as we call it, ANS. Now I'd like to take a moment to provide a brief update on ANSI's two affiliates that you've heard a lot about, ANAB and WorkRed. This year, Doug Leonard. Doug, where are you? Oh, he said he was going to go away for 1 hour to take his wife to the airport. Sorry, I forgot that. He's here all day, except for that 1 hour. So anyway, Doug, you're here. So Doug Leonard was promoted to the ANAB senior leadership team as the executive director, which is the leading position there. And we're very happy to have him here. He's done a good job, and he's continuing to expand the activities and the scope of our work significantly. And Warren Merkel. Warren, are you here today? I know you were here yesterday. I don't know if he's here. I guess not. Warren joined us as a vice president of policy, and he's done a successful work also. ANAB's launched several new programs, including a much-needed accreditation program on forensics, and that's become quite successful. Potential to grow lies ahead. ANAB increased its portfolio of recognized accreditation services, bringing the total of this to 63 scopes, which is quite significant. Subscopes of recognition are also running through both the Asia-Pacific Accreditation Cooperation and the Inter-Americas Accreditation Cooperation Mutual Slant Multilateral Recognition Arrangements. That's a long title, but we're covered by and approved by both. ANAB's newly designed website connects the third parties with accredited organizations in their area of interest and offers more direct access to industry experts, programs, related standards, articles, and training courses. Very well done. ANSI's second affiliate, WorkRed, also had a busy year, releasing new research on the value and use of manufacturing credentials. The report identifies how employers and workers value credentials and provides recommendations to support a highly skilled and efficient manufacturing workforce. WorkRed also partnered with the community colleges to embed IT and healthcare certifications into the association degrees or associate degrees so that the students can receive both, which is quite an achievement if that happens successfully for the long run. I think it's a broad-based education and the technical skills required by the employers that come to success all in a single move. We're very proud of that, and hopefully it'll expand as we go forward. And with the backing of several prominent partners, WorkRed launched a Research to Action Fund to support research on data linking that could ultimately better illuminate pathways into the workforce in the future. Now, with so much happening in our community, it's really critical that ANSI remains fiscally responsible and diligently focused on our strategic priorities. Both are imperative, and to ensure that we can address the needs of our members and stakeholders today while preparing to meet the priorities and challenges of the future, this is what we need to be doing. We continue to be laser-focused on the management of our expenses. We also spend money because that gives us opportunities to grow and diversify. And through the continued diversification of our revenue streams, we ended 2022 with the operating revenues of nearly $90 million. Now, that's not a big number when you think about it. When I came to ANSI, I think our revenue was about 17, 18 million. So we've come a long way in a reasonable time. So this year, 90 million is an increase of almost 2 million over the past year. So we're happy, considering the environment externally. That's been pretty tough. Thank you to all of you, members, partners, collaborators, and friends, for your active participation, for your dedication, and ongoing support. It's our privilege to be with you and to serve you. Before we adjourn, I would like to thank the ANSI Board of Directors and another year of outstanding leadership and guidance. I offer my gratitude to Phil Pocara. Phil, I know we joke around, but I really mean it. I can say that Phil is someone who has been a tremendous leader. He's made some very difficult decisions. He's done difficult situations well. We have made significant strides thanks to his wise and steady guidance. Huge thanks to Russ Cheney. Russ, you're here. Thank you for joining us. You're here as well, and you will be concluding your term as an immediate past chair, but I hope your linkage with us continues, and we'll find a way to do that if possible. And a final expression of appreciation to the board officers, Dale Sear, who I know is not here, Tim, I know you're here, Tim Klein, Mary McKeel, of course, our president coming up, and David Miller. I don't think he's here. Lastly, I would like to thank everyone who serves in the leadership position in ANSI, chairs and vice chairs of policy advisory groups, program oversight committees, member forums, collaboratives, workshops, and many more. For our progress this year and every year, thanks to all of you. Thank you very much for what you do. Before we open the floor for questions, I'll quickly share how you can now access our new annual report. For those participating online, we are putting a link in the chat. For ANSI members and all who registered for this meeting, you will soon receive an email with the report. And for the next few days, you will also be able to access the report from ANSI's homepage, ansi.org.